Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Neighborhood with your hosts, Tim Johnson and Stacy Borho. Together, they are finding out what makes the heart of the Heartland beat. They sit down with people in your community that lead organizations, businesses, and government. You'll learn who they are and what they're involved in and why. They are the people in your neighborhood. It's In the Neighborhood with Stacy Borho and Tim Johnson.
Good morning, everybody. This is Tim Johnson and Stacy Borho. We're coming to you on In the Neighborhood, and today we have Derek Kistner.
Yes.
Founder director of Greater Peoria House of Prayer.
Thanks for having me.
Beautiful day out. We're
yes, a scorcher.
Facetious.
After being sub-zero, it is nice.
This is warm.
Yeah,
it is.
But it is.
I'd rather have snow than this weather. But anyway.
What is the House of Prayer?
The House of Prayer is just for the community, anyone who wants to come in and pray and just experience kind of an atmosphere where you can break away from busy life, connect with God. That's why we're there. The bigger vision is to one day be open 24 hours a day. But right now we're open a little bit less than that, but it's just for people to come in and have kind of a spiritual experience and experience God.
So what are the hours you're open?
Well, we're open, I tell people, so we have morning prayer and we have evening prayer. And so morning to afternoon, we're usually open. And then we have a live worship and prayer set most nights. And so you can come in the morning usually. There's an afternoon time, and then most nights is when people like to come out, listen to the music, sit there, pray, things like that. So it's a work in progress, certainly.
And where are you guys located?
East Peoria. I tell people between Beck's Florist and Whitey's. So most people know Beck's Florist and Whitey's Barbecue, some of the best barbecue in town. Right in the middle is just a kind of an unseemly storefront, and our awning says Greater Peoria House of Prayer. Right next to Vintique, if you want to buy antiques. A lot of people go antiquing. We're nestled in right there.
So what's it right across the street from that?
Kroger's right across the street. Yep.
Good.
A lot of Kroger shoppers.
Sure. So what inspired you to start this?
Oh, man. Long story short, I guess. For some reason, when I became a Christian, my inclination toward prayer just kind of grew and always stuck. And so it was, a number of years ago where I kind of felt, man, I'm called to do full-time ministry at some point. I worked a career, not a whole career, but I was a kind of a Caterpillar career guy for roughly 10 years, and then began to feel and sense that this isn't my ultimate purpose in life. Mm-hmm. And so the story I tell people is I just committed to prayer what I was sensing, because I felt I was supposed to make a transition at some point. And I said, God, essentially, if this is you, would you please provide a building? And, that it was probably within a few days, someone contacted me and said, hey, I've got a building in case you're thinking about, some kind of prayer or ministry. I had not talked to this person. So the building kind of presented itself, and I was like, whoa, that works. Wow. And so it's been 4 years now that I've been building the vision that I have felt has been given to me. So it's been a crazy journey, and it's hard to reduce to a couple minutes because so much has happened, but that's the long and short of it.
That's really impressive. So if someone wants to come and pray,
mm-hmm.
what time are you guys starting out?
Well, we have a morning prayer, 7 to 8 a.m., where you can just come and kind of join with others. There's like an afternoon, 11:30 to noon. I would recommend like a night slot, 6 to 8 p.m., where there's music, the microphone's open if you want to pray on the microphone, then we do small group times. But the goal is just to come and whatever you feel to do. Some people just come and sit there. Others, will pray with someone. But it's kind of just to be what people are looking for, need it to be for them. So hopefully that makes sense.
Sure. So is it denominational based?
I would call it interdenominational. Certainly non-traditional. So anybody can come in. We have people who I don't know if they have a relationship with God yet, but they feel drawn like they should be there. And we don't say, "Hey, you're this denomination, you can't come in," or that.
No ID
certainly,
checks at the door.
Well, no ID checks, definitely not, except for you guys. No,
We're going to put that card out.
yeah. No, but it's really, my heart is to see the church come together and to be able to pray together, fellowship together, and we want that feeling to come through in all that we do. And so certainly we're not checking IDs at this point.
Not that we would have an idea.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So I know prayer means a lot of things to a lot of people.
Right.
How do you define prayer?
I look at it very simple. We simply talk to God and He talks to us. And that could be mainly through the scriptures, but there's a subjective element too that I think is worth exploring. But it's not complicated. I think oftentimes, Christians may make it too difficult. It's simply, you feel something, you say it to God, and sometimes you leave it there, or sometimes there's more of a dialogue. But I just think it's that. He speaks to us, we speak to Him, and we create that relationship. Just like with our spouse or our kids, the analogy I use a lot is, what if we got married and then never spoke again? That would be awkward. But in our relationship with God, we sometimes think it's different. But really, we talk to Him and He talks to us, and the more we do, we have that deeper relationship. And so I'm trying to encourage people that direction.
Yeah. If you look at the Bible, they have a lot of different times when, prayers were a lot of different things.
Yes.
It was yelling at God and saying, "Why?"
This is true.
And
Right.
or coming calmly before Him and saying, "Why?"
Right.
Or just listening for that small, still voice.
Exactly.
And just being quiet and listening.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, there's so many postures of prayer. There's so many modes of prayer. I encourage people not to make it complicated. Like, you don't have to kneel down and do a certain. You can if you want, but I think God's just looking for our honest heart. And the more we just engage with Him like that, I think we find out it's a very relaxing relationship, and it's motivating to be in it. So I hope my life will help debunk a lot of of the mystery around prayer. I think it's supposed to be very simple and intuitive.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be that inspirational. Somebody gets up and does it professionally.
Right.
And matter of fact, Jesus was kind of one of those that kind of said, "You guys are kind of windbags."
That's right.
You need to really,
Right.
So, prayer's a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but I think having a place where you can go anytime, any day,
Right.
that would be an awesome thing to have available.
That's the goal.
So what would it take to get there?
Well, a lot of people, a lot of willing hearts who just kind of have a vision of what 24-hour worship and prayer could look like one day. And the analogy I use a lot is, think of McDonald's. If you wanted to, have a hamburger, let's say, and, you went to McDonald's and you saw, wow, they're only open 3 hours a week and they're not open today. We're in such a, life is 24/7 now. And so, to answer your question, what's it going to take? It's just going to take people that understand the world we live in now is much different than, previous generations. And people, they want a hamburger at McDonald's, they can go any time of the day or night. If they want something on Amazon, they can go any time of the day or night. And there's a lot of people who are searching for a spiritual experience with God. The second shift welding guy or the teacher who's working long hours, they need a place. Sometimes the church just isn't open, and that's not good or bad. It's just the way it is. So I'm hoping to create a place where you can come anytime and have that rich connection. Still stay a part of your local church. Still do what you're called to do, but have a place where you can be refreshed. And so it'll just take a small army of people who just buy into that vision. So I'm hoping that they start showing up.
So how many, is it just you still right now?
Well, I'm the only full-timer.
Okay.
We have a part-time gal that keeps the books, and we just have a lot of people who are interested in volunteering and that show up on Tuesday nights and lead a worship team, or, they come Wednesday morning and that's their morning prayer time. There's just a bunch of folks that do once a month or once a week, and just hoping over time it'll grow.
So worship, what do you mean by worship?
Oh, worship. What I mean by that is a live, contemporary expression. Worship certainly is, we worship with our life, when we obey. But what I mean by worship is, I'm hoping that one day there will be live, contemporary style worship just every hour of every day. We see this popping up in a number of places in our country and around the world. So I'm hoping that we can kind of have a prayer atmosphere and a live kind of musical worship atmosphere together, so that you can kind of enjoy those prayer times, listening to music and praying. And so that's kind of what I mean by that.
So do you have people that come in and speak, or?
Absolutely. I do most of the teaching on Friday nights, but we have a lot of area pastors that I invite in, or other spiritual leaders that I'm in relationship with. And I like to do that just to expose people to the larger body of Christ. So I've invited in, a number of groups from different places, pastors in the city, just to get a heart for what's going on in your world, what's going on at your church. That's why I kind of love this. There's so many different stories you guys are tapping into. It's very similar to what I'm trying to do as well.
Yeah, it's a community thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to come and volunteer, what would they need to do? Do you guys have a website?
We do. gphop.org. It's a work in progress. It's nothing pretty at this point, but I would be open to however anyone would want to serve and volunteer. They could send us an email, call us. But really, it's, the need is, if you have a passion for prayer and you want to join with others, come out and spend some time with us, get to know us, and we'd love to have anyone.
Is that Monday through Friday, or are you guys Saturdays? Sundays?
Saturdays and Sundays as well. We do
So you do have a service on Sunday then?
Well, we don't have a service on Sunday, and I'm glad you asked that. We don't consider ourselves like a local fellowship.
Okay.
And so I encourage everyone in the community, stay at your home fellowship, keep going there. But I do a teaching on Friday nights kind of to fuel our faith and passion for prayer and whatnot. But we're not at that place where we could say, hey, we're a fellowship. And we may never be that place. I kind of like the idea of just being kind of a citywide gathering ground, where we're not necessarily saying, hey, come join us. It's more like, come get filled up here and keep doing what you're doing at your church, in your business, your marketplace, etc. So all the hours are on the website. So just, go there.
And what's the website again?
gphop.org.
gphop.org. You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Short for Greater Peoria House of Prayer. Yeah.
So remind me again when you open the doors.
7 a.m. on weekdays, 8 a.m. on weekends.
Awesome. So when did you start? When did you open the doors that way?
Okay, so it's been 4 years now. We're at our 4-year mark. Long story short there, just we prayed for the building to open up, and then that kind of landed. We moved in, and then the bottom tenant moved out, so we had the upper and the lower, and so it's been 4 years now that we've had the whole building.
So have you seen lives change? Has things happened?
We have. Cool things. I think, man, that's a great question. There's a number of stories that like specifically like people converting, or
whatever you want to share.
Okay. Oh man, I'm just trying to think. I don't know what I can say. We've seen a number of people, yes, who, I guess a good one that I would share is a young guy named Jake, who's now been around probably for the full 4 years. He was in a real tough spot emotionally. His family went through some really hard times and was really stuck in depression. And he came out, got into the prayer room, started coming regularly, and then one day met with me and said, I've been like crying every day of my life for like 2 years or something like that. And I mean, it was a real heavy conversation, but when I came to your prayer room, something changed and lifted off my life. And I can't explain it. And we're like, well, that's God. That's what happens when you spend time with him. And he's a totally different person now. I consider him one of our leaders at the House of Prayer now. But there's been a lot of people who've come in with just real heavy hearts. And when you see it lift in a real way, it's just like, wow, this is why we're here, to help people kind of get through some difficult places and find that experience with God that helps their heart get free. So that's kind of we made a video about Jake's testimony that's on our, I think our Vimeo page. But yeah, there's been a number of stories like that where you see people get free, and that's what it's all about. It's really cool.
So do you guys do baptisms?
No, if people want to get baptized, I say go to your pastor. There's a lot of things where I'm glad I can say just go to your pastor. We don't have the capacity to do a lot of things right now because we're not officially a local fellowship. But so yeah, if you want to get baptized, talk to your pastor. I'd be happy to take you down to the river, but maybe not this time of year.
So are you a minister?
Well, that's a good question. I call myself an intercessory missionary. So I'm not a part of a denomination, so to speak. I stay in relationship with my local church, so they're kind of an overseeing entity, and I have somewhat of a board, of people who are regularly involved and more experienced and wiser than me. So yeah, we're still in kind of the beginning phases of getting all that sort of figured out. So, but I don't call myself a credentialed minister. I'm just kind of, God gave me this mission, so I'm marching forward. And along the way, people, they call me pastor, they call me reverend. I've been called everything. I just say, call me Derek, and that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Well, what I've found too, I'll just add something briefly, is most people, when they come into what God has asked you to do, they think you're the most spiritual thing in the world. Like if someone comes in and they don't go to church, they have no experience, but they come in to the Greater Peoria House of Prayer, they look at you like you're pastor, or they don't know the titles we know in the church world, but they look to you like they're you're the spiritual leader. And so I've just tried to assume that role to help people, but I don't prefer titles or anything like that. But so yeah.
Titles don't really mean anything.
Yeah, no, not really.
It's more so what we do.
Yeah.
So if you're going through struggles,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going through and you don't know this whole religious thing,
Mm-hmm.
they can come in and say, here I am.
Absolutely.
I'm just looking for some help.
Absolutely. We will literally have people come in off the street, just walk in our doors, and I'll see them and say, hey, how you doing? Anything going on that I could help with? And sometimes it'll turn into a prayer opportunity. Sometimes people are just beat up by life and they need to talk to somebody. I think those are cool opportunities. I mean, we have a little bench that we put right outside the House of Prayer, and people sit in it all the time. It's the only bench on our side of the street. And I kind of made this little commitment. Like, Lord, if anybody sits in that chair, no matter what I'm doing, I'm going to talk to them. And that has opened up so many, ministry opportunities and chats and times for prayer. And so, it's just open anybody, and it's amazing who will just walk in the door and the people I get to meet. So, yeah.
One of the things I love about worshiping in church service is the music.
Oh.
So do you guys have bands that come in all the
Yeah.
time, or do you have like a dedicated one, or do you open your doors to if somebody wants to come sing or play?
Absolutely. What we do is we have kind of a rotating schedule. So we've
Okay.
got like 4 or 5 main teams for our Friday night service. And then we've just got, so there's about 30, how many weeknights are there in a month? Like 20 weeknights. There's just different families or young adults who will take like once a month, twice a month, and they'll come play with one of their friends or with their family. And
So cool.
and so we've filled up the calendar with just a bunch of little teams, and it's a real non-threatening, environment where you can just go up there and be average, and there's 3 people who will be like, you're awesome, you're playing music, whoa. So it's like actually cool, and some teams will come in and practice their Sunday service at their slot.
Oh, sure.
And so it's kind of a, just one of those free atmospheres where you can come in, try things, but it's live music for us, and we get to pray with it. So that's kind of how it works. And we're hoping one day that just every hour of the day will be full of that.
So you're open to that anytime.
Oh.
So if Tim wanted to grab his guitar
He
and come
could
down
totally
and play.
do that. And, and there's so many styles, there's so many flavors, and so certainly, Tim, you'd be more than welcome. Bring your ukulele and your spoons.
Harmonica. Actually, one of my favorites is the box that they just sit on and they just kind of,
Yeah, we got a guy that does that. Actually, he'll be here this Friday.
So
he sits
insane.
on a box. And,
yeah.
Yep.
I mean, just the simplest little thing.
Huh. What are some of the biggest struggles you have right now?
Biggest struggles, I think prayer is tough for a lot of people to make it work, to make time for it. I'd say the biggest thing is, trying to build something 24 hours a day is you got to get a lot of people to buy into prayer. And quite frankly, people just don't see how prayer benefits my job. And I get that. I worked in the corporate world. I had stresses like no other. And to go, oh yeah, I got to go to a prayer meeting now. It's hard to connect that and see how that benefits it. And so I'd say just helping people understand that there is a correlation between our spiritual health and our work life. And they're integrated. And so I think that's my major challenge is in essence seeing a prayer revival amongst Christians, and Christians once again seeing the value of taking time weekly to invest in prayer and pray for their families and their businesses, etc. That's the big one I'm going after, is if we can get every Christian with a strong prayer life, who knows what could happen in our community. So we certainly know God answers prayer, and I think we've kind of backed off of it a little bit, but I'm hoping it changes here soon. So,
I'm just thinking back through. I used to go to Olivet,
Okay.
Nazarene University,
Right.
and they used to have a chapel on campus.
Absolutely.
And I would just love to go there when there's nobody else there,
Right.
and just take my time with God. And I always thought that would be an awesome thing to be able to have a place where you could go at any time and just be quiet
Absolutely.
and listen.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like that's exactly what you've created there.
Absolutely. I grew up Catholic, and I would consider myself more charismatic now. But I grew up, at St. Thomas, going to our masses, and there'd be a place where they'd have dedicated prayer areas, and I'd see the old ladies, with their rosary, and they'd be in there for hours. And I just, as a young kid, I would just be so mystified by why would you give hours of your life to prayer, but yet I was kind of drawn to it, but I didn't, I was just a kid. But those kinds of thoughts have stuck with me throughout my life, and now that's kind of what I'm trying to build, is a place where people can come in and just have what you're talking about, just a place to be with God. That's sometimes at home it just doesn't work. It's just too busy or too many distractions, and so to be able to go to a place to shut everything down, even turn off the smartphone, which that's a big one, is, I think it'd just be so helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It was something that I actually was looking for, in all honesty. So I was really excited when you started sharing that, because I used to go to Sacred Heart.
Oh, wow.
At the noon, they had the noon service.
Really?
This was way back when I was in my early 20s, but I used to go because it was during the work week and I could get away, I could take a breath, get a little bit of God and say some prayers. But I stopped enjoying that, and I wanted something similar. And so I'm really excited that you shared, because I have a women's group that I lead on Monday nights,
cool.
and I know that we all talk about that. Like, we need something in the evening. We need something to refill, because Sunday's not enough. And,
awesome.
it gets busy.
It does.
Life gets hectic, whether you have families or just stuff.
Right, that's right.
Right? We fill our lives up with stuff, whether we need it or not.
That's right. No, that's really cool.
We believe, most everybody believes that prayer changes things.
Right.
We know that the world needs change.
Right.
And complaining about change doesn't work. But if prayer changes things, we can change the world, right?
That's right.
The scripture that always comes to mind for me is, if my people who are called by my name.
Love that verse. Oh, my goodness.
The big thing that we miss is, if my people
Right.
who are called by my name humble themselves and pray, then I will heal your land.
That's
right?
right.
And so it's not, if the non-church gets their act together, then we'll have a great country, right?
That's right.
It's, again, back to if my people.
If my people. That's right.
Yeah.
That's a
So,
great. That verse is so meaningful to me. So
Yeah.
we have the power to change the world, but we have to pray. God's looking for that relationship, and when we talk to Him, He moves. And so I'm hoping to do my small part to help mobilize that.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that God's going to use us no matter where we are.
That's right.
And so a lot of people too are thinking of their past and they have their regrets and everything. So they're like, well, I'm not really worth anything
right.
anymore.
That's right.
So they're afraid to walk in. So that's really awesome that you have this safe place that anyone can come into.
Truly, anyone. I've got people who come in and say, I've been hurt and I don't feel like I can go back to my church right away, but I feel like I can come here and get my spiritual life back in track before I go back. I've heard so many things that you just wouldn't think people would think, but they do. And so I'm so happy that we can be an environment where people feel safe. They can just kind of recharge, get their spiritual life back, and then kind of go serve and do what they're called to do again. I mean, life happens, stuff happens, and it can really jolt us. And I'd love to be considered a place where, that's a safe place. I don't even know if I'm in a relationship with God yet, but I know I can go there and they'll love me. But certainly, we want believers to come and enjoy prayer. But I hope it can be, a place that's inviting for anybody.
So where's the parking?
Well, it's, everybody, there's...
I know exactly where you're at now because I go to a title company. Terry Miller's there.
Yeah.
People, they park all over the place. But the secret is right behind the building is McKinley. And there's signs everywhere that say don't park anywhere, but I've never seen someone get in trouble. So the secret's out. Don't tell too many people. So just somewhere along
McKinley. Can you get in through the back, or would you then have to walk
there's a
around?
back door that's open.
Oh, okay.
So there's a
And
front and a back. It says there's an awning that says Greater Peoria. For a while, there wasn't an awning. So it looked like an unmarked, weird building, and you didn't know what was going on in there. We finally got an awning, and it looks much safer. But there's only kind hearts inside.
That's all that matters.
So if you don't know the formula for prayer,
No problem.
there's no formula.
Yeah, there
Just
is.
come in and
Just come in, join with others.
and there's people that help you along the way. That's a pretty amazing thing.
Absolutely.
Great. Give us your website again.
gphop.org.
HOP, H-O-P.
GPHOP.
Yep, House of Prayer. That should be pretty easy. And what's the street address for you?
117 Washington, right in between Beck's and Whitey's.
East Peoria.
In East Peoria, Illinois. Yep.
Awesome. So they can email you or do anything through the
Yeah,
website?
all the information's there. And
Do you guys have a phone?
We do. We do have a phone, yes. 713-1075, I think. I don't ever use it, but it goes straight to voicemail, and then I call people back a week later.
We'll stick back to the website.
Yeah, go ahead. Just email me. I have my phone on me.
Right. Well, it's been great to get to know you and get to know what you do.
Thank you.
It's one of those things that I am not familiar with, so this is excellent.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, great. You're here watching In the Neighborhood on PeoriaLife.com. Watch for us on Facebook and YouTube and PeoriaLife.com, obviously. Watch for us on your cable channels in Peoria. We're there. And WPEO, thank you, WPEO, for putting us on for now probably about a year and a half. So appreciate them too. So make sure you comment and share these as much as you can. And if you saw a previous show that you like, make sure you go back and share that again. We appreciate that. That helps us. And of course, if you would like us, I feel like high school.
Would you like
us?
Would you like me?
Yes. Don't dislike us.
Yeah. No.
Thankfully,
Join
it's
us
not an
there.
option.
Thanks so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
PeoriaLife.com